Chapter 8 moves us into working with the market supply curve. So now that we have discovered that the market supply curve comes from our marginal cost curve above where the average variable cost is, we would calculate this for every firm and then end up with a supply curve that's going to look like this. So we just kind of delete everything or get rid of everything that falls below average variable cost because we wouldn't supply there. And so that ends up being a fairly straight line that we would call supply. Note that our axes are still labeled with a price and a quantity. And what this is going to allow us to do is to eventually put supply and demand on the same graph. So the law of supply is telling us that at higher prices, producers are willing to supply more, and that is why supply is able to be upward sloping, because as price increases, quantity is also increasing. Once again, we have a change in quantity supplied versus a change in supply. So the change in quantity supply is going to result from price change. It's going to move us along the supply curve. So if we have original price and quantity on our supply curve, if there is a price increase, it moves us from one point to another along our curve. We went from the black dot to the red dot. A change in supply, on the other hand, is going to move the entire curve. So if there's an increase in supply, we're going to move to the right. And if there's a decrease in supply, we're going to move to the left. Now, if you remember, I mentioned that we probably want to say right and left instead of up and down when we did demand, and it's because in supply, if you try to apply those same things, it's not going to work out so well. So we have to say right is increase and left is decrease. Now we're going to come across some supply shifters. So just like with demand, we had demand shifters, we now have supply shifters. So we have our price and quantity labels and our supply curve labels, and what we're trying to say is that if there's a change in the price of another good, what's that going to do to supply? So if we have an original price line, and we use bread and butter, if we see an increase in the price of bread, we're going to see that people are going to want to supply more bread because bread went up, which means that if we're supplying more bread, we're also going to attempt to supply more butter because they go together. So this might be kind of confusing. So now we have to think from a producer standpoint. So we're no longer looking at demand, we're looking at supply. And if price goes up, we want to supply more because we think we can get that higher price, which is going to cause us to end up supplying more butter as well.